Hello, Reddit. This is Throwaway. My wife follows me on Reddit, and I need a lot of advice. My wife and I have been together for 10 years and married for 7. We have a little girl who is 5. 2 years ago, my wife lost our baby. He was stillborn. I do not blame my wife for losing him. She couldn't control it. It happened in June of 2022, and she sank into a deep depression. I tried my best to support her while taking care of our then 3-year-old and working as much overtime as possible. I had suggested that she quit her job. In November, I got her into therapy, and that seemed to help her greatly. She started opening up to me about how she felt, which was good, and I think it really helped her heal. On the other hand, I hate to sound like a narcissist, but I never healed, and I never got to talk about how I felt, because she said I shouldn't feel sad since I didn't lose the baby. So I just stopped talking to her about myself altogether and just listened to her. Now, 2 years later, I'm not an alcoholic, but I do drink quite a bit, all things considered. My wife is still a stay-at-home mom and is looking to get a job so that I won't have to work 14 hours anymore. She also wants us to try again for a new baby. I told her no, that we were not going to try again at the moment. She asked why, and I said that she is healed from the death of our baby, but I am not. She got mad and said that I shouldn't be sad because I didn't carry him and have to push out a dead baby. I just kind of said okay and went to get a drink. She had thrown out my alcohol. I told her that we all grieve in different ways, and I'm grieving by drinking, so she shouldn't have thrown out my drink. She still couldn't understand why I was grieving, so I just told her that I have a right to be sad as well. She still couldn't understand it, so I pointed out who was there for her, and she couldn't understand it, so I just left the house. So, was I wrong for telling her that I have a right to be sad as well? I will try to answer questions in the comments. Edit. To address the main question, which is why didn't I get help when she did? She was going to therapy every day, which adds up, so for me, money was tight and wasn't enough to get us both therapy, nor did I have the time either. And, well, you had money for alcohol, yeah, because that may only be $20 to $50, and a lot of it we already had in the house. They got it for us as gifts, and she used to host a lot. Update. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. Your wife, on the other hand? The only reason she is in such a good place is that you have been carrying the entire load. 1, you worked massive overtime, so she didn't need to work at all. 2, you couldn't go to therapy because she was going so often. 3, she got rid of your last coping mechanism. It's a bad coping mechanism, but it's still yours. May I softly suggest Alcoholics Anonymous? It sounds like you're in the gray zone between heavy drinker and full-blown alcoholic. If you can get the help you need before the hole gets deeper, isn't that better? There are people there who know about grief and depression. They probably have knowledge of resources that can help you. Comment 2. You lost a child too. She's being incredibly selfish and self-centered, not even acknowledging your grief and pain. That being said, grieving by drinking is not okay. It will never be okay. That's how addictions and bigger problems develop. I left my alcoholic ex-husband because of this. He never sought counseling or ways to help with his depression, anxiety, and all his other problems. He just drank them away. Save up the money you're using for drinking and use it for counseling. Now, for the update. It's been 3 days since my last post, and a lot has happened. I've been reading your comments and trying to figure out what to do. I've been reflecting on the past few years, and I realized that I've been bottling up a lot of emotions. I never really talked about how my wife and I used to host a lot of parties before everything went downhill. We were the couple everyone envied, always throwing the best get-togethers. But after we lost our son, that all stopped. My wife couldn't bear the thought of socializing, and I didn't want to push her. The day after my last post, I came home from work early. I wanted to talk to my wife about everything, about how I felt, about us. But when I walked in, I found her sitting at the kitchen table with a stack of papers in front of her. She had been looking for jobs all day. She looked up at me with such hope in her eyes, thinking I was home to tell her I was ready to try for another baby. But that wasn't why I was there. I sat down and we had a long, hard conversation. I told her about how I felt ignored and how my grief was just as valid as hers. I reminded her of the times when we were happy hosting parties and how we used to be a team. She listened, really listened, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were connecting again. But then she dropped a bombshell. She told me she was pregnant. She had taken a test that morning. I was in shock. I didn't know how to feel. I was angry, hurt, and confused all at once. She explained that she had stopped taking birth control a few months ago because she thought it was causing her mood swings. She wanted to surprise me with the news that we could try for a baby again without the hormones affecting her, but she didn't expect to get pregnant so quickly. I didn't know what to say. I just got up and left the house. I wandered around for hours, trying to process everything. I ended up at a park where my wife and I used to take our daughter to play. I sat on a bench and watched the families, feeling more alone than ever. The next day, I didn't go to work. I called in sick and spent the day thinking. I remembered how my wife had been there for me when my own mother passed away unexpectedly. She had been my rock, organizing the funeral, comforting me, and helping me through my grief. I realized that I hadn't been there for her in the same way after we lost our son. That evening, I went home. My wife was waiting for me, and we talked again. This time, it was different. I apologized for not being there for her, for not understanding her need to move forward. She apologized for not seeing my pain. We decided to start fresh, to support each other, and to face this new pregnancy together. But just when I thought we were on the right track, another surprise came our way. My wife's best friend, who had been a constant presence in our lives since college, came over. She had always been like an aunt to our daughter and was one of the few people who stuck by us through everything. She sat us down and told us she had something important to say. She had been in love with me for years. She said she had kept her feelings hidden because she didn't want to ruin our friendship or my marriage. But she couldn't keep it to herself anymore, especially now that there was another baby on the way. I was floored. My wife was silent. I looked at her expecting anger or tears, but instead, she just nodded. She knew. She had suspected for a long time, but didn't want to believe it. The room was heavy with tension, with years of unspoken words hanging in the air. My fiancé sabotages our birth control to force a baby, but I leave him and he can't handle the rejection. Now he's begging, but I'm done. I, 21-year-old female, have always been very against having children. I like kids, don't get me wrong, but I can't stand the idea of having my own. My fiancé, 24-year-old male, has known this since we started dating 3 years ago. He proposed last year, and I said yes. The first few months of being engaged were wonderful, and he couldn't have been a better partner. However, about 6 months into the engagement, he kept bringing up the idea of maybe having a baby. I told him every time that I don't want kids of my own, and he accepted this answer the first few times. At the end of last year, my sister, 19-year-old female, had her daughter. Despite living 8 hours away from us, we were still close, talking over the phone pretty much every day and visiting whenever we could. Since she had the baby, my fiancé has gone from accepting no as my answer to kids to saying how disappointed he is in me for not being maternal like my sister. He constantly makes sly comments and remarks about me hating children, how I would be a useless mother, and how I'm pro-baby on a living because I supported my youngest sister through a termination after she ended up pregnant at 14. It was not her fault, but I'm protecting this post from Reddit. His most recent comment, which he said to my mother, was, "When him and I, have kids, you'll have to be the mom if OP isn't going to stick around." Like, what the heck? What shocked me most was that she is on board with it. She knows that I really don't want kids, and she has been somewhat supportive and told me it's my decision at the end of the day. However, much like my fiancé, she has been trying to talk me into having kids since my sister had hers. She straight up said to me, "I know you don't want children, but think of fiancé, he wants them so desperately. I really hope you change your mind for his sake." What? So I told him that if he is so desperate for a baby, he can have one, just not with me. I said I would give back the ring, no hard feelings, and we can move on and meet new partners who actually want the same things in life as us. This did not go down well. He shouted, screamed, smashed up our bedroom. He had a full-on toddler tantrum at the thought of me leaving him. He is adamant that he is going to have kids and it is going to be with me. I told him again, for what must be the 1000th time, no. This just made him worse, but I'm not willing to play along and say yes in something that is such a huge life decision. I don't want kids, and him having this toddler tantrum just emphasized my point. So I took my ring off and handed it to him. He looked bewildered, but I told him that this was a complete deal breaker for me, which he knew from the start of our relationship. I called my friend, explained the situation, and she came to pick me up right away. He continued screaming, shouting, and throwing things. I left as soon as my friend arrived. I don't know when I will be ready to return. Am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Don't go back alone when you're picking up your stuff. Be prepared to see that he has destroyed everything or what you held dearly. And go see a doctor. You don't know if he has tampered with your birth controls. Get a full checkup. Comment 2. Not the idiot. This is not a toddler tantrum. This is abuse. He became violent as soon as he couldn't get his way. I would break up with him for good. You don't want kids and no one should pressure you into changing your mind. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been 3 days since my last post and boy do I have an update for you. After I left my fiance's place, I stayed with my friend who has been an absolute rock through all of this. But things have escalated in ways I couldn't have imagined. The day after I left, my fiance showed up at my friend's house. He had flowers and a box of my favorite chocolates, trying to win me back. He said he was sorry for his outburst and that he understood my stance on not having kids. But I could see the desperation in his eyes, the same look he had when he first started pressuring me about the baby issue. I didn't buy it for a second. I reminded him of the countless conversations we had about not wanting kids and how he had agreed with me before my sister had her baby. I told him that his sudden change of heart and the pressure he was putting on me was unfair. He left, but not before saying that he would do anything to change my mind. Later that day, my mom called. She was upset, saying that she had just had a long talk with my fiancé. He had gone to her after leaving my friend's house, pleading with her to help him convince me to reconsider. My mom, who had always been supportive of my choices, suddenly started to echo his sentiments. She said things like, people change their minds all the time, and maybe you'll feel different in a few years. I couldn't believe it. The one person I thought I could count on was now taking his side. The next day, things got even more intense. My sister, the one with the new baby, called me out of the blue. She never gets involved in drama, so I was surprised to hear from her. She told me that my fiancé had contacted her, asking for advice on how to be a good dad and if she thought I would ever change my mind about kids. She was shocked and told him that it wasn't her place to say, but that he should respect my decision. That evening, my fiancé posted a long, emotional message on social media about how much he loved me and how he was willing to wait for me to be ready for kids. Our friends and family started commenting, some supporting me, but many others saying things like, "Give him a chance, and you might regret it if you don't." I felt like I was being ganged up on, and it was overwhelming. Today, the situation reached a boiling point. I went back to our apartment to collect some of my things while he was supposed to be at work. But when I got there, he was waiting for me. He had taken the day off to try and talk to me again. He begged me to stay, saying he couldn't imagine his life without me. But then he said something that made my blood run cold. He admitted that he had been poking holes in our condoms for months, trying to get me pregnant. I was in shock. I couldn't believe that the man I had trusted, the man I was going to marry, would do something so deceitful. I felt violated and angry. I grabbed my things and left without saying another word. I refused to invite my cousin to my party because of her wild PDA, but she crashed it and my mom demanded I apologize. I stood my ground. My 23-year-old mother is berating me for not wanting to invite my 24-year-old cousin to my birthday party. The thing is, my cousin and her boyfriend have this habit, or rather kink, of sneaking off to have intimacy, sometimes semi-publicly, sometimes in public. I was invited to her birthday party 6 months ago at a restaurant, and when they brought in the cake, they were nowhere to be found. My uncle, who is my mom's brother, and her father sent me to look for her, and I found them having intimacy in his car in the middle of the parking lot. She saw me, smiled, waved, and laughed with her boyfriend. This was not the first time something like this happened. Later, I found out that my uncle sent me because he didn't want to catch his daughter in the act again, and her friends already knew about this habit, so they refused to engage in their fantasies of being caught. I took my things and left, and my mother scolded me because she said my cousin was upset and embarrassed that I just left with a disgusted face. Her friends backed me up, with some of them leaving too. I told my mom what happened, and she told me I should have endured it to not cause a scene. But I told her that I am a grown woman and I could have left even without a reason. Now, my birthday is in a week, and I made plans for a weekend out at my grandmother's beach house. She has given me permission to use it and bring my friends. I sent out the invitations, and when my cousin found out, because my uncle told her, having heard it from my mom, she was confused as to why she didn't receive one. I told her I love her. But I didn't want her there because my friends are bringing their boyfriends too. And so am I. I don't want them to have to endure her and her boyfriend's kink because it will make us uncomfortable. I told her it is one thing to have intimacy, and it is another thing to involve other people in their intimacy life without their consent. She was furious, saying that I was excluding her and that she would do it on my birthday. But I laughed and told her she did it on her own birthday, so I didn't believe her, and I would rather not risk her ruining my party. So she went complaining to my mom about it, and she tried to force me. But since I live on my own and pay my own bills, she couldn't. So she went to my grandmother to try and convince her to not let me use the house. But I had already told my Nana everything, and she dismissed her. So now my mom, my aunt, and my cousin are all bothering me about it. I think I have the right to invite whoever I want, but maybe I was too harsh? My cousin and I were really close friends, but these past months I've been pulling away from her, and I feel a little bad. So, am I the idiot? English is not my first language, so I may have explained some things a little weirdly. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Ew. I'm all for a healthy intimacy life, but the minute you need to shock other people with it, I draw the line. It's beyond inappropriate to have intimacy in the middle of a party in such a way that you want other people to catch you. That kind of kink infringes on other people's rights, and I think you had every reason to leave her off your guest list and tell her why. Maybe suggest your mom host your cousin and boyfriend that weekend so she can play this weird game. I'm just astonished that everyone is trying to pressure you to invite these people, knowing their history. Not the jerk. Comment 2, not the jerk. Look, even your uncle knows this is her normal behavior, and I applaud you for setting a boundary with family. It's a difficult thing to do. Don't cave, but tell your mom to make it up to your cousin. You're going to arrange for her and the boyfriend to come stay with her. Then she can have the pleasure of them having intimacy around her house in hopes of getting caught. Now for the update. Hey everyone. A lot has happened since my last post about my cousin and the birthday party drama. Buckle up, because this update is a busy ride. So my birthday bash at my grandmother's beach house was supposed to be a chill weekend with close friends, but it turned into a full-on family feud. Remember how I didn't want to invite my cousin because of her and her boyfriend's inappropriate behavior? Well, things escalated quickly after that. After I stood my ground about not inviting her, my cousin tried to play the victim card. She went around telling family members that I was being unfair and excluding her for no reason. My mom, who always had a soft spot for her niece, bought into the story and started pressuring me again. She said that families should stick together no matter what, and that I was causing unnecessary drama. But let's not forget the history here. My cousin's antics weren't new. There was that time at her own birthday party when she and her boyfriend disappeared to have intimacy in her dad's car. And it wasn't just that one time. At family gatherings, picnics, you name it, they'd sneak off. It was their thing, and everyone knew it. My uncle, her dad, was so embarrassed by it that he'd send someone else to find them, just to avoid the awkwardness himself. Now, back to the beach house situation. My cousin, not one to take no for an answer, decided to show up uninvited. She thought she could just waltz in and be welcomed with open arms. But when she arrived, I was firm. I told her she wasn't welcome because she hadn't been invited. She tried to argue, but I wasn't having any of it. My friends backed me up, and she eventually left, but not without causing a scene. The next day, things took an even crazier turn. My mom showed up at the beach house, unannounced and furious. She accused me of being disrespectful to family and demanded that I apologize to my cousin. I couldn't believe it. Here I was, trying to have a peaceful birthday, and my mom was siding with my cousin's inappropriate behavior. I tried to reason with her, explaining that my cousin's actions were not only disrespectful to me, but to everyone else at the party. I reminded her of all the times my cousin had embarrassed the family with her public escapades. But my mom wouldn't listen. She was adamant that I was in the wrong. The confrontation with my mom was intense. Voices were raised and harsh words were exchanged. It was a side of my mom I'd never seen before, and it shook me. She was so blinded by her need to protect my cousin that she couldn't see how her actions were tearing our family apart. In the end, my mom left, still angry, and I was left feeling drained. The rest of the weekend was overshadowed by the incident. My friends tried to cheer me up, but the damage was done. The whole situation had put a damper on what was supposed to be a fun and relaxing time. Looking back, I can't help but feel a mix of emotions. I'm disappointed in my mom for not understanding my point of view. I'm frustrated with my cousin for not respecting my wishes, and I'm sad that our close relationship has come to this. But I also feel a sense of relief. I stood up for myself and set boundaries. It wasn't easy, and it came at a cost, but it was necessary. I love my family, but I can't condone behavior that makes me and others uncomfortable. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.